Welcome back. So today I will be starting a series on built-in tag helpers. It will be consisting of two videos, and I'll be using the ASP.NET 5 version, which is the latest, and this tutorial is built on yogihosting.com, whose link is in the description. And watch on from start to finish and subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends. So let's see what is in store for us today, what we're going to learn. So tag helpers for the form element, Asp Anti-Forgery Tag Helper, Tag Helper for the label element, Tag Helper for the input element, Tag Helper for the select element, which has got Asp items tag helper, and tag helpers for data cache, and tag helpers for anchor tag. So what are tag helpers? So tag helpers are used to perform defined transformations on HTML elements. So if you wait for a few more seconds, I will explain everything in detail with a project that I have built, and we'll take it from there. And it enables server-side code to participate in creating and rendering the HTML elements in Razor files. And tag helpers are of two types, like what you expect. One is the built-in tag helper and another is the custom tag helper. And tag helper for the form element are of these types. They are used for generating the action attribute. They are asp-controller, asp-action, asp-root, dash star means it could have any other things appended to it, asp-root, and asp-root, asp-area, asp anti-forgery, and this will be explained in detail in the lecture to come. So please be with me through the entire duration to get the best value out of it. So I will now switch over to Visual Studio, a pre-built project, and I will use that for explaining the built-in tag helpers. Starting point today will be this project that I have started already, and this is known as Learn Tag Helpers. All it has got is a model which has got a product class. This is the product class, and name, price, quantity, and a repository which has got a product repository which implements an I repository, which has got two elements. One returns an I enumerable of products, and another is a add product method which takes in a new product of product type. And this project was built out of ASP.NET Core 5.0, the latest version, and I built it following the lecture in the description of this video from yogihosting.com, and I used the empty ASP.NET Core template, and I had created this controller folder with a home controller.cs home controller and models folder, everything from the scratch. The basic reason for starting with an empty template vis-a-vis or as compared to the MVC template is that I wanted to just get with the stuff that I require for this project. So if I run this project, all it shows is the list of product, and this uses in-memory collection. It doesn't use any database, but it actually creates a database scenario by using the list of products in memory. So if I run this application, and you'll see what happens, what it shows, and then we'll take it from there for the detailed description of the built-in tag helpers. So after the application runs, it creates a name, price, and quantity, a table which shows the product, price, and quantity, and it takes it straight from the model. So let's break this application, stop this application, and this data comes from here. All right. Now, what is a form tag helper? So form tag helpers are used to target the correct action method based on the application's routing configuration. So asp-controller is used for asp-controller built in this tag helper is used for specifying the controller to target based on routing system. If omitted, then the controller of the current view is used. An asp-action, that tag helper is used for specifying the action method to target based on the routing system. If omitted, then the action rendering the current view is used. Now, rest of the tag helpers for the form I will explain as I go along. Now it's time to use these form tag helpers in our application. So we'll create a new view inside the views home folder and name it create. So accordingly, right click here and click on add view. It'll go for reserve view empty because I'll add some code and I will call this create. So it will create a razor view create.cshtml. So here I will just get rid of the existing code that comes with the template and copy the code that I have on my clipboard, and I will start explaining. So this is one of the form tag helpers, ASP controller, and this is ASP action. So ASP controller is the home controller and ASP action is the create action, which we have still to write. Okay. Now the form has the method of type post, so that it means when the form is submitted, then the create action of type HTTP post will be invoked. So you'll have to go to the home controller and we'll create two actions, one for the HTTP get and another for the HTTP post. So I'll come back after posting the code to create the create action method. Now I have created the two create action method. One is default. I have not quoted HTTP get, but by default, if you don't write the attribute, it will take it as HTTP get action. And this is HTTP post action, which takes a product item. And this create HTTP get is actually returns just a view and doesn't take any argument. And HTTP post create action, it will return an iAction result type, and it actually adds to the repository a product object, and it then redirects to the index page. That's all it does. Now here I have applied for HTML for attribute in the label elements. Label for here, label for, and label for. Now it specifies the element with the label it is bound to. Okay, so label for name, again label for price, and label for quantity. Now input elements have been given the names name, say so name, price, and quantity. Now these are the names of the properties of the model class called product model class or product.cs. By giving them these names, MVC will automatically bind the parameter of the HTTP post create action method, that is public action result create product with these values. This is the technique called model binding, and it is very, very useful in creating highest quality codes. Now if I run this application, now I have again run the application and browse to localhost :port, which will be different for different machines, and /home/create, and I am presented with the create view with name, price, and quantity, and a add button. Okay. Now I have enabled the F12 development tools, and if I browse to this form element, you can see the action as front /home/create. Okay, so that's what I wanted to tell you. Now next, let me fill this create form with some item, say shirts, and click on add. So one product will be added to the repository. Now if I run this application again, so I have added an entry in the name, price, and quantity, and if I click on add, so this shirts, this item is added, shirts with price 57 and quantity 7. Okay, so we have seen that the new product is added to the repository with the values you gave in the form or I gave in the form. Now I'll be redirected to the index view, and that all comes from this part of the code, which is here. After adding the product, it redirects to the index action method or index view. Redirect to action in the index view. Okay, and this index view showed us the recently added product. Now here you can see that in this create view, it is invoking none other than the same view, that is the create view. It is currently in, therefore there is no need to apply asp-action and asp-controller tag helpers, and this code will act just fine if you get rid of these two tag helpers. Okay, Control S, and if I run this application once again, Control Shift B, so I have taken off the asp-action and asp-controller tag helpers, and it still works fine because of the reason just I told you, that it's in the same create view, so with the same home controller. So asp-controller or asp-action is not needed, so you can just get by with the post method, form method post. But that was just to demonstrate the reason for putting the asp-action and asp-controller. Now next is the asp Anti-Forgery Tag Helper. The asp Anti-Forgery Tag Helper generates a hidden request verification token to prevent cross-site request forgery. So at this moment I will not be going into the cross-site request forgery, but there will be another lecture which will tell you in an upcoming video about this CSRF or cross-site request forgery. So when you use this attribute in your form element, then the ASP.NET Core MVC does two things. It adds a security token in a hidden input in the input element to the form and adds a cookie to the response. The application will process the request only if it contains both the cookie and the hidden value from the form, which a malicious site cannot access, and hence the CSRF cross-site request forgery is avoided. Now to use this feature, we'll add the tag helper asp anti-forgery equals true to the form element and add the attribute validate anti-forgery token in action method. So what we will do is asp-action method post, asp-controllers home, asp-action create. Now asp anti-forgery equals true. Let us write asp. Now that dash is automatically coming, so anti-forgery equals true. So this is enabled. Okay, just save it and come back to the home controller, and below this HTTP post attribute, another attribute, validate anti-forgery token, and then save it. Okay, now if I rerun the application, let's rerun the application and check the HTML code generated. Now I have rerun this application by clicking the F5 over here. It's in the running mode, and I have browsed to home/create, and I'm browsing this form element, and you can see here the input name is such and such, request verification token, hidden type with a huge value, encrypted value. Okay, so this hidden input element is created inside the form element. It contains the security token. This is basically the security token, request verification token. Okay, this is actually preventing the cross-site request forgery by using this tag again, validate anti-forgery token in the HTTP post action method together with the asp anti-forgery. This is the tag helper, enabling it to be true. Right. So this is about anti-forgery token. or asp Anti-Forgery Tag Helper. Now in the developer tools window, I have gone to this applications tab. Okay, so applications tab, and then clicked on cookie, expanded this cookie for this session, https://localhost: this port number, and you can see this is the cookie generated is with the name. You can expand it, ASP netcore anti-forgery. Okay, and then this is the value. Right. So in the controller's action, the attribute validate anti-forgery token will automatically validate this cookie and the security token. Now let's kill this application and learn about tag helper for the label elements. The label element has only one tag helper, which is called as asp-for. So this is label for, but we are going to use the label asp-for. This is used to set the for attribute and the contents of the label element. To test this change, we'll change the create view to this new view. So let me change this for element to asp-for. asp-for asp-for and save it. And if I run this application again, now I have again run the application and browsed to home/create, and when I inspect this form group, so this now comes as label for equals name, and this is the name. Label for equals price, and this is the price. And similarly, label for quantity and quantity. Now this asp-for tag helper does two things. It sets the for attribute of the label to this model property's name, and it sets the contents of the label to the name of the model property. Name of the model property, it could be, it is name here, the name of the model property is price, name of the model property is quantity. Okay, so that is the asp-for tag helper for this label. Now what are the tag helper for the input elements? The input elements has a very useful built-in tag helper, which is asp-for. This tag helper sets the name, ID, type and value attributes of the input element. Like input, this is the input could be button, it could be a checkbox, radio button or text. Okay, so for proving that, we'll come to the create view and use the asp-for tag helper for the input elements. So here, instead of the name attribute, I'll use this asp-for tag helper, asp-for, rather this is small, asp-for equals name. Caps lock was on, so this was giving funny things. Okay, now so here it will be asp-for, and this time it will be price, and then this is asp-for. Now remember, these attributes, name attributes, are now converted into these built-in tag helpers. So what do they do? Now to understand that this asp-for for these input elements, let's run this application once more. Now this time when I run this application and browse again to home/create and open the form element, and you can see here in the input, so input has got now the ID, name, value. Okay, so type, ID, name and value properties for all of these three input elements. So again, input type was text, data value true, data value, and then ID and name and this value. Okay, similarly for this third input. So we can see that the price and quantity have got additional attributes like data value number, data value required attributes. Now these are used for doing server-side validation. So that will be in some other upcoming tutorial on model validation. So ignore them for the time being. Now name and price inputs are of type text. Okay, name and price inputs are of type text. Okay, but this quantity is of type number. Okay, the reason is because the ASP.NET Core provides the type value to HTML controls based on the model property types. Right. So in order to prove what I just said, let's come to the product, and the name is of string, price float, and quantity is of int type. So if the model type is a string, it returns type attribute for the input element is text, but if it is float, double, or decimal time, still it will be the text type attribute for the input element. Whereas if it is the type is int, like here, quantity, the type attribute for input element will be a number. Now let's study tag helper for the select element. So there are two built-in tag helpers for the select element. So these are asp-for, which sets the ID and name attribute of the select element to the model property name, and asp-items, which specifies the source of values for the option elements contained inside the select element. Okay, now let's change the create views quantity field from input to select. Okay, so let's do that. Create views, and we'll change the input to select. Okay, so as I said that I will change the quantity field from input to select. So this is the quantity field. Okay, and let us change this input tag to select by copying the code, saving it. Now let's run this application once more. So now when I run the application and browse to again home and create and bring the developer F12 tools and expand this select, you can see that this is the select class form control, and we have got these data val true, data val required, which is the required attribute, the quantity field is required, and ID and name, and I've got these options 50, 100, 150 and 200. So these are these options. Now this MVC framework is very intelligent. Let's close this. And when you bind the select control with the model value, then you'll see that the select controls value is automatically selected. And now to check this, we'll add an edit action to the home controller. This action will return the last added record from the repository. So I have created this edit action result, which returns a view result, and it actually gets the last value added to the repository. Okay, now let's run this application and browse to edit, home, and create. Now this application has come up, and I will browse to home and create again. And on this create view, I will add a new item, say pants, and price 88, and say quantity anything. Say let's select the quantity 150. And if we go for the F12 tool by right clicking and inspect elements, so I will just magnify this, so maximize this, and let's see body, and so I'll add this product and then bind it with the last added product to the edit view by going to its URL by browsing to home, and this time instead of create I'll go to the edit. Okay, browse to the edit, And here I will see option selected equals selected as 150 because I have chosen 150. So I can clearly show that the quantity selected is 150 in the select control, which is selected over here. Okay. So next there is one ASP items tag helper for the select item. So let's kill this application, close this browser, and the ASP items tag helper is used to specify the source of values for the option elements contained inside the select element. This helps to generate the option elements from the data source. So accordingly, we have to change the create views quantity select elements code to this. So create view, and for the quantity, it will be div class, and a select class, it will be form control ASP for quantity. Now this time, instead of this option tags, I'll have to change it to ASP items. So following the ASP for tag helper, this will be ASP items, which I'm going to show you. ASP items equals view back dynamic property dot quantity, view back dot quantity. Now not only have I put this ASP items tag helper, which comes from view back dot quantity, and I have written this option disabled, and select value is empty, and select a product. Now I specified a view back dot quantity data source for the ASP items view back dot quantity. Now I will also have to change the create and edit actions HTTP get type. Now change will be shown in a sec. Now here are the changes. So in the create HTTP get action method, all I did was to return a view after assigning the quantity from view back dot quantity equals new select list, which gets the select items from repository dot products dot select, and this is the lambda expression c dot quantity dot distinct. Okay. And also I've changed the edit, and this is the, for comparison sake, this was the earlier code, it was returning a view like this. Now here it is returning the view after getting assigned from the view back dot quantity in the, and this line is the same. This line in the create action method is the same as this line of code in the edit action method. Now the viewback.quantity property is set to a select list object that is populated from the unique values for the quantity property in the repository. Now the select list object resided inside the Microsoft.asp.core.mvc.rendering namespace. Okay, so let's run this application. There are some build errors. Now let's see what is the build error. Select list could not be found. So there is some missing using statement. So I'll have to add this one using Microsoft.ASP.core.mvc.rendering. Okay, so this is what is added, and then let's run the application. So the application has come up in front of us, and if I just maximize this and then browse to home and create, or even home and edit, and select a product, say 300 this time, and click on right click and inspect. So here, so when I get to the F12 developer tools, and this time these option items are configured from the viewback.quantity data source. As we have written this code from here, asp items equals viewback.quantity, and then we have changed the source to get it from the viewback.quantity dynamic property. Now, final item of the day is tag helper for the data cache. Now, data cache is an in-memory cache for caching contents to speed up view rendering. You can keep a content of a view in the cache element like this. So cache and end cache tag, within these two tags there is some content. So we'll go to the layout.cshtml file and add the cache element for caching the current time. So let's get back to the layout.cshtml, and what I shall like to do is a div class viewback.title div class container fluid, and above the render body tag I'll introduce another cache tag. Now this is the new snippet of code. So this is another div I have created, which is an inner div, and it caches the date time. So this is the current time it will cache. Okay, so let's run this application again. So you can see that this date time element is cached. So even if the time is increasing, it is cached to the time when this code was run, this application was run, which was 20 hours 21 minutes 47 seconds. This is 8 p.m. at night, 21 minutes 47 seconds past 8 o'clock. Now if we refresh the page, you will see the time changes. Now if you refresh, the time remains the same, and that is because the time is cached. So we have seen that the time, whatever time has been produced, remains cached. Actually it doesn't change because I showed refreshing 2-3 times. Now I have run this application and it is showing the current time. If I click on refresh, it doesn't refresh because the time is cached. Okay, so the time is cached, so no matter how many times you refresh, it will remain the same. This is due to caching. So again we kill the application, and there are some important tag helpers for the cache element, which are I will show you. Now these are the tag helpers for the cache elements. So expires on, expires after, expires sliding, vary by query, vary by cookie, and vary by. So we'll take in some of these, and I will go back to the switch over to the Visual Studio, just exit from the slideshow and get back to the Visual Studio Code, Visual Studio 2019. And so what I have done is I have put in the cache tag, I will put a attribute expires after this built-in tag. So at time span from seconds 20. So what does it do? It returns the time span that represents the specified number of seconds. Okay, so it actually expires after that a time span of 20. After this is absolute time in date time value at which the cache expires, and it is here, it is from seconds. So after 20 seconds the cache expires. So if you click on IIS Express and to run this application again, you can see that the time is 20 hours 31 minutes, and if I wait for 20 seconds, let me refresh it. Now the time has incremented by 20 seconds. Now to refresh, nothing will happen, and it will again, this caching will expire after 20 more seconds. Okay, still not exit. Now it is 20 31 40. So now caching expires after from the time it was originated after 20 seconds, not from seconds 20. Okay, so after 20 seconds the caching expires. Now there is another expires on tag helper, we'll now change the code to the cache element so that cache expires on a particular time. So now I have changed the tag helper to expires on. Now this is the absolute time. So this at this time, so 1/1/2022, this caching expires. Now there is another expires after. Okay, so let's see expires after. Expires after, and change the code. So expires after, let's write time span dot from seconds I already taught expires after, so let's start expires sliding. Expires sliding, this is sliding expiry. Actually from the time that it is initiated, it will expire after whatever time that we put. So this is expire sliding equals at time span dot from seconds, say 10 seconds. So if you now run this application, okay, let's clean this application. When such error is unable to remove directory, I'll normally clean the solution and rebuild it, and then it runs. And then run this application again. Now here I see if that date time is 20 hours 37 minutes 03 seconds. So if I click on, so it will change. Now if I keep on clicking, nothing will happen even after 20 seconds. But if I wait for 20 seconds from the last refreshment, let's see what happens. Now this time the time has changed. This is called sliding expiry. So this is different from the first one that we did, expires after. So in the expires after, it specifies the relative time in time span value at which the cache expires, and this sliding expiry is the sliding time since the last usage. So this tag helper specifies the sliding time in time span value at which cache expires. Now the vary by tag helper is used to specify a key to manage different versions of the cache contents. So I will change this layout element so that, so I put this vary by for the data cache vary by tag helper at view context.route-data.values.action. Now this means that the cache contents are based on the current action. Now there are three actions, as you recall, index, edit, and create. So there are three versions of cache that will be created, and one each for each action method. And expire sliding tag helper sets the sliding expiry time for these versions. Now let's come to the tag helpers for the anchor tag. Now these are the tag helpers for the anchor tag: asp-controller, asp-action, asp-area, asp-fragment. Actually this will be asp-route, and asp-route dash something to append it for. Like this specifies the additional value for the URL to target. For example, asp-route ID equals 10. This provides the value 10 to the ID segment of the route. So let's flip over to Visual Studio again by getting out of this slideshow, and I will make some changes. So I have gone back to the index view, and below the model attribute at model directive, I'll create this asp-action, and this will create a action anchor tag, and this will create an anchor tag. This will create a link, okay, So let's browse to this. Let's run this application. Now, as a result of creating this anchor tag, this is an anchor tag. This is just like a button, and if you click on create, it will take you to the create view. Okay, home and create. If you just magnify this, zoom it, home, create. All right. Now I have also added another ASP route ID, this tag helper anchor tag, and assign it the value 20. And if application is now run, then you will see the change from the previous thing. No. Okay, again I will just clean the solution and then rebuild, rerun the solution. Now when I browse to when I mouse over create, you can see on the bottom left home/create/20. So this will get to this anchor tag, this URL. So localhost colon port number /home/create/20. So I think the lecture is getting quite big today, and we have covered all the bases that we needed to cover today. So in this lecture we have covered tag helper for the from element with asp anti-forgery tag helper, and then tag helper for the label element, tag helpers for the input element, tag helper for the select element, and asp items tag helper. And we have also covered one more thing. We have also covered, which I actually missed over there, asp-for tag helper for the select element, and then we covered the tag helpers for the data cache and tag helpers for the anchor tag finally. So hope you enjoyed this tutorial and you got some valuable information. So please connect back again to see more on these ASP.NET Core tutorials. Thank you.